or Facebook, or wherever it is that you want to spend your time marketing. And look at the groups that you participate in that are where your ideal client hangs out, and addressing some of their concerns and answer some of their questions, or just even monitoring what's going on, learning new things. But by blocking bits of time, it's not consuming your whole entire day, and you'll feel less overwhelmed. And I said scheduling activities, so using the auto post scheduling feature in your blog, your email marketing system, social media. So what I'd like to ask you are, what are some of the social media tools that you help to save time? So for me, I use Buffer app. It's a social media scheduling tool that schedules to LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, and now Instagram and Pinterest. I don't use the Pinterest option, but I use Buffer app. Do you use Hootsuite, Sean?
I do use Hootsuite a lot, pretty much for all the scheduling for Twitter and whatever else I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else use any?
It's Hoot like an owl, H-O-O-T suite.
Okay, thank you.
As in S-U-I-T-E, or
Yeah, and it allows you without charge, I think, to manage up to 3 social media accounts. And then there's a subscription service and you get unlimited accounts.
Yeah, Buffer app is the same way. You can schedule up to 10 posts on all of those platforms that I mentioned for the free version. And then there's a few more out there. You can also, if you're only using Facebook, you can use the scheduler in Facebook. So if you have, and this only applies to the Facebook business page, not your personal profile. That's why it's really important if you have business and you're promoting something on your business, it should be on your Facebook page, not your personal profile. So you can schedule your posts to post into the future. So those are just really quick and easy tools that you can dedicate a block of time in writing a bunch of content to auto post for you into the future. So you're not spending all of your days on social media. So my challenge to you, if you don't already have a system in place, is who has 10 to 15 minutes every day that you can dedicate to marketing your business in some way, whether it's on social media, or picking up the phone and prospecting, or writing content. So that's my challenge to you. So the third step in building your marketing foundation to take away the overwhelm is consistency. It takes time, but if you stick with it, you'll start to see some traction, and you can take classes or get to learn some new tools, and you can build upon that. So if you're not doing anything right now, just start by doing something. So you're all here tonight, you're being proactive, and you're networking, you're learning things, so just start by doing something. Determine the frequency that works for you so you can stick with it. And if that's that 10 to 15 minutes every day, that's great. If it's once a week, that's great. But stick with that, you want to be consistent, and then you can build upon that over time. Because otherwise, that's when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like, I have to post something every single day. You don't have to, but you have to be consistent so you're in the timelines more often. And by building that consistency, you will start being more visible. Another easy tool is recycling and repurposing your content. So you don't have to recreate the wheel all the time. So a little tip is I used some of the content from this speech in a blog post.
Cool.
On my own website, in a networking group I'm a part of, I used it, I submitted it, and they published it on their site. thanks to Sean, he runs another networking group I'm a part of. He published it for me, so that's repurposing your content.
Yeah, but
And
I
then
don't
I
call it
use some of
networking,
it.
I don't call it networking. So, yeah,
What do you call it?
I don't do anything I don't wanna do, it's just an interest I have, so.
Good.
I try to find other people who are interested in the same thing I'm interested in, or that can teach me things, and I've created a meetup group where we get together. So, I don't do it with the thought of networking and selling and cross promotion. I like Amy, so putting it up there was worth the time and effort it helped her, so.
Thank you for that. But it's other leaders and innovators in our community that get together and learn from each other. It's pretty awesome what he created. So, but yes, don't recreate the wheel. Use your content you already have. And like I took bits of this presentation and used it in social media posts. And I used a post from 3 months ago, and I can publish it again next week because your readers will not see those same posts, whether it's Facebook or email or social media. They're not gonna see that or remember it. If they do, it's just getting your message out there and across to them. So, I can give you an example of this too. It just reinforces things. There's Spark People. I don't even know if they're still around, but I used to subscribe to their email newsletter. And it's like a healthy living, healthy eating company. And so they were on like a 4-month cycle. And I could start seeing that cycle in the emails, but that was fine with me because I remember one in particular, it was a portion size email. And it had examples of how to figure out your portion sizes. So I first read it and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. I should print that off. And I didn't. So 4 months later when I read it again, oh, I'm gonna print it off this time. I printed it off, but then I think it just got lost in the stack of paper. 4 months later, okay, I need to hang it on my fridge this time. So I did eventually do something with it. But those rereading some of those newsletters, it just reinforced their message. Or if I didn't have time to read it that month, and deleted it, I saw it again 4 months later. So it's okay, but you just want to be consistent and in front of people consistently. And you don't have to recreate the wheel. And then start small and manageable and nurture it so you can build upon it, again, so it's not overwhelming to you. And the consistency also applies to your branding. So that can be in the font, size font, the color, your brand colors, your logo, your taglines, even some people go as far as their image tied to their brand. So everything should be consistent. So an example of that is I have my color purple. I don't know the hex number of it, but it's my color, my brand color purple and orange on every slide in this. So I have that consistent branding image, and I have it across all my social media platforms, my blog, and my email marketing, my business cards, and all my printed material. So my activity for you in consistency is, what are you currently doing for marketing your business? And what can you do to build upon that? So you're doing LinkedIn. And did you get any ideas of what you could do?
You know, I get all kinds of great ideas and I'm not following through. LinkedIn is just fabulous. I mean, I'm very lucky to have good people on my LinkedIn. But to answer your question honestly, I'm not following through on all the great ideas that are out there for me to take advantage of, even in terms of posting a blog. But I encourage other people to
Yeah,
to
do you think if you dedicated a couple hours, like in
If
a
I
month?
dedicated a half an hour a day,
Yeah.
3 hours a week, I'd be great. I just am not doing it.
Yeah,
And it's there, I mean, it's there for all of us, it's there for me, I'm not taking advantage of it, but I do believe there's a tremendous potential there. For, you name it.
yeah,
And yet, but one thing I've noticed, just to reiterate what you said, is the people who I am involved with on LinkedIn who are smart do repetition. You see it once a quarter.
It drives
The
that
same
message
yeah.
in, yep.
And
And that, it's so easy to say, when you're wearing all those hats of running your business, it's easy to say, oh, I really need to be on Twitter every day, or I really need to write a blog post once a week. Well, it's easy to say those things, but unless you schedule it in your calendar or however you think is going to drive you to do that, putting it in my calendar works for me. That holds me more accountable to it. So just try to think of what it is that you want to do. Start a small step. If that's being on Facebook posting on Facebook 3 days a week, or finding a new networking group to show up to once a month or once a week or whatever it is. Just start there with that one thing, schedule it in your calendar so you develop that consistency and you stick with it. And then you can build upon it because it's less overwhelming once you do it. So today we talked about marketing planning is laying the foundation to take away the overwhelm through clarity, ease, and consistency. So once you develop your system that works for you, celebrate, but keep building upon it. Take classes or read things so you can keep improving your marketing. Or hire it out. But you have to do something. So I wanted to tell you about an upcoming event just briefly. I have a summer school DIY marketing crash course. It's a how-to 4-session course over 2 days. It's August 17th and 24th. It's at the Rasmussen campus in Woodbury.
Oh,
And you can choose the entire 2-day course, or you can pick and choose the classes. So, and I have a print-off for you right in your, that pile in front of you, but I have a blogging for beginners course, so we'll actually set up a WordPress blog for you, but we'll also talk about best practices and how to use, how to start blogging. Email marketing basics, and we'll use MailChimp, and we'll set up a MailChimp account, again, talk about best practices, and develop a strategy for you to start your email marketing. And then social media for business, developing a social media plan that you think would work best for you to build upon. And then the fun one is online design tools, where we'll talk about free and fairly easy online and app design tools. Things like Canva and PicCollage and PicMonkey, Pablo, those are the ones that we'll discuss in class and we'll go over. And that will help you develop really cool graphics for your social media, blogging, and email marketing, and all other sorts of marketing that you can do, so you don't have to hire it out all the time. There will be times you still need to hire it out, but for those quick and easy turn things that it's not really fun to pay for, and you don't have the time, to wait for a couple weeks for somebody to create a bunch of pretty blog posts for you, or social media posts, you can do it yourself using those tools. So, I'm offering 10% off if you sign up tonight with me, and then you have the pricing and everything right there. If you have any questions, let me know. So thank you very much, and now that you are overwhelmed, Jan's gonna help you.
that's
But
funny. Thank you.
we're gonna take a 5-minute break
Okay.
and start at 8 o'clock, and I will pass out.
7
7 o'clock, sorry, I'm telling you, we've been so funny, we have completely been off, I've been off like 4 times, she's corrected me, and then all of a sudden I said, it's the wrong time.
This is about time. There's this great book which I lent to Becca, how the Not So Good Life.
We'll just pass
Anyway,
them.
the thing that she says
Just
about
the two.
time is really interesting, just a different way of thinking about time. sometimes man-made, how we see it in minutes and increments and how it really doesn't feel that way. So that's when we get into trouble, when we see on the calendar that, oh, I can do this minutes like you for this time, you for this time, because it's the same minutes. Because we're much more productive a certain time of the day,
Right.
get 10 times as much during the same minutes than you could another time. So it's certainly, it's like a, wow, just like paradigm shift, about how to just think of things differently. Well, yeah, I can't get anything done in the afternoon, I'm not gonna get anything done, so I'm gonna let myself not get anything done. You know?
So you're with the dad,
Um,
I did a vendor fair on the 50th of France.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I was probably there.
Were you? I'm the one that does the
We do really think
Oh.
minutes,
So,
hours.
Matt, right?
Well,
so
especially if
turning
you're
me in,
watching
he goes,
this,
okay,
you
you have 30 seconds. I'm gonna time you start now.
And then if you're on the roll and you want to keep going, or you
Makes
could
it
get
a
done
little
earlier, you
Oh,
could get done earlier.
So you
I
can
can-
come.
Everything takes longer.
Yeah, people don't
She's a
realize
good
that.
friend.
But yeah, and once in a while, it's
I
a
need
little
a
quick.
drink, like a strong one.
My partner's a painter, so,
After the day I had.
when she paints,
Well,
she's
it's
working on a painting for an hour, she
Yeah.
sits down, she'll do another painting, so she's working for 5
Right.
minutes.
Yeah, so
So,
I was.
but she can walk away in between, and I think it's difficult for her to always understand, writing, you can't necessarily do that.
It's really hard to get back into
Right, you've got a stream of consciousness that goes through it, it's a different, it's still creative, but it's a different process.
It's called decluttering, it's now called decluttering. Someone else done.
So, Amy,
It's easy to do.
okay, I want my 10%, so I'm in.
Okay.
Is this Wednesday or Thursday?
What day of the week is that?
They are, it's
It's
Wednesdays.
like,
Okay,
a week they'll respond.
And we can
Woodbury?
carve
Never
it.
stop.
yeah, that's right, because Wednesday nights, 17th and 24th.
But it's the
It's during the
morning,
day.
During the day.
Yeah.
So I have to get over to Woodbury by 9. It's the opposite problem you had. I have to cross the sea of 94 or 35.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's an all day.
I don't think it's as bad as 494.
Oh.
Oh, 94 is, yeah, 35 and 94 are more than that.
The phone call that she was talking about?
Anybody need more water?
Yeah, so for the à la carte classes, it's 10% off that call.
Oh,
Did I not get that?
well, you came over from
It's
Luck, and you got
right
to
here.
experience of Lumley.
Yeah, and you know, as much, because I've only lived in Luck about 3 years, and as much as I complain about the lack
Oh,
of,
yeah, okay, so the classes.
even
à la carte.
getting a pizza delivered to my house,
It's 10%.
the lack of community in business opportunities, I enjoy coming to the city,
I've been using MailChimp.
but not today, not during rush hour. I usually pick and choose, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's my goal, whenever I make plans with people that I'm gonna, I will be there before rush hour or after, so that my early birds, I will get there at 7 o'clock in the morning just to avoid that. Rush hour, I did the rush hour,
Right?
done.
I just don't know
Yeah,
how,
and then
why
it's like,
anybody would do this on a daily basis. That's 3 hours of your day from Luck to, an hour and a half.
But I had a friend that went from
That,
Hudson to Eden Prairie every day.
I'm geographically challenged, I don't know, is that?
That's even further out,
Okay.
even further west.
Well,
Okay.
try to keep the spammers out there.
I had a friend that drove from Fresno to Visalia from California, and she said, no, I enjoyed the commute, I kind of relaxed, I could listen to books on it. She said, I'll know when I'm ready to change. And she said she thought she'd gradually get tired of it.
Oh, yeah.
And she said after 5 years, all of a sudden, one day it was like intolerable.
Yeah.
Done. She said, I walked in that day and gave my notice. She said, I didn't even have a job. She said, I could not tolerate 1 more minute of the commute. And I was like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
that was a surprise. Speaking of overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was like, done.
If you.
I like to drive, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the car driving, going places. but
Love
I'm-
road trips.
Yeah, I do, I just, it's just hard, you know, when I had to be here at 6, it started at 6, I don't want to be late.
Yeah.
and then 2 accidents, and you get up there, and this is why I don't carry a gun in the car, I just,
Yeah, somebody was just talking about that, they said, if you,
Yeah, there's a fine line.
if you think you've dealt with all of your childhood issues, see what comes up when you're stuck in traffic. How angry do you get, how frustrated, how helpless do you feel? So I thought, oh, okay. So,
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate
but
it.
anyway, what I told everybody is that licensed clinical social worker, I'm tired of doing that cluttering.
I'm feeling
Also,
guilty
Air
already.
Force veteran.
I didn't mean to do that, I just, you were good at, you were a marketing guy.
It's just a
and
pro-
Discipline for 3 years.
Wow.
I was like,
That was in Chicago.
they wanted me to do anything they thought a girl should do, so I did child abuse, spouse abuse, rapes, everything that, get the girls out of the house.
well, there's, and male testimony, so, there's a lot of that, there's a lot of gets lost in the shuffle. And there's not a lot of resources, historically, there hasn't been a lot of resources towards that.
Developing that.
It's been a health issue.
Getting your
Oh,
email list.
historically
not been a lot of-
Oh, and they did not support us, you know, and so I remember they got a call at 5 in the afternoon that somebody committed suicide. And the base commander wanted to know why we hadn't stopped it. And I was up out of my chair, because I was gonna give him an earful, because you never allow people to
They're
talk,
interested in what you have to
you know, they
say.
take their
If
right,
they're not, they
that's the end of their career, if they show up, and there's no confidentiality.
No,
And my PhD partner goes, stop, I think maybe I ought to take this call. It's like, well,
There's some really,
Where we stay?
new things with, special forces coming back, I mean, they've, counselors and social workers now embedded in the units, and
Yep.
anytime they go out, when they come back, they have to go to a psych eval, which is unheard of 10 years ago,
right.
you know, it's so, I mean,
Finally getting some support.
and you can do it,
Yeah,
you know,
Becca's
low cost
involved with
as
the
a small
23-0,
business.
you know, with the
It's not
23
like
suicides
it's
of
It's
veterans,
not like having
22
a board
veterans
that's
and one
just so
disability.
broad, not targeted for your email list, it's
So,
very
you
targeted.
know,
it's happened, you get a 15, 16-year war with no end in sight, and you send these soldiers on, you know, 8 deployments, 10 deployments,
I'm just,
I mean, it's gonna happen, all volunteers,
Yep.
I mean,
and the rest of the world doesn't
Nope.
seem to know they're gonna, you know,
total disconnect with what we've asked our men and women to do.
absolutely.
That's why.
And do you know, I think the latest defense is, I think in 2018, girls are gonna start registering for the selective
For the
service.
second service, yeah.
So we're running out of guys.
Yeah.
And somebody said, that was the scare tactic to not do the ERA. Oh, they're gonna draft it, so. Somebody said,
you're not gonna talk about reality, are you?
oh, no.
I'd leave if you were. I hate reality.
If you want reality, you just stay home, right?
Yeah, you need that, so, anyway. All right, we're ready to start. Here we go. Yeah, that's on. And I am happy to be here and thank Amy for giving you so much information and all the stuff, and technology does overwhelm me. I finally called her up and said, okay, I've been looking at your videos on Facebook and I've given up and I want you to help me. So I recommend her highly. One of the things about overwhelm is you can look at this first paper here on expectations versus reality. And this is one of my favorite little visuals. I think it's really fun. So if you say the greater the gap, the greater the distress, and that can be the overwhelm. And people find themselves angry or irritated or disappointed or even depressed. So what you want to do is you look at what are your choices. And I shared this with a group and I said, there are these 3 choices. You can modify reality, you can modify your expectations, or you can modify your reaction to the gap. And I said, if anybody ever finds a 4th choice, let me know. This guy puts his hand up in the back. And I said, what? And he says, I have one. I said, what? He said, you can drink. And I looked at him and he goes, you didn't say it had to be a good idea. But I think what, I was just talking to somebody about how they really modified their reality. They quit their job. They left that relationship. They moved out of state. One woman just had moved to Minnesota to just get away from all the drama, and that was this huge decision. when you think about, okay, let's think about what I can do. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Traffic. What can I do? I can move to Luck,
Yeah.
which you did, right?
Which I did.
And so you can really look at the big changes. And after you kind of look at those, you say, well, I'm not really ready to make those big changes. You want to look at your expectations. I tell this story, and some of you have heard this, but sometimes those expectations kind of creep in without you knowing it. And when they handed me my little baby, it was the smallest baby I'd ever seen, my firstborn. She was 6 pounds, 12 ounces. And I had never held a child that small. And I remember the nurse handed her to me, and I turned to my roommate and said, is the nurse just gonna leave her here? And my roommate very wisely said, well, she's yours. And so I wanted to be the perfect mom, so I bathed her and I, fed her and I swaddled her and I pet her head, just, comforting her. And she wouldn't be crying, but there was something missing. And I just kept at it, and I knew something wasn't right. And finally, after a month, I figured out what it was. I didn't have dolls as a kid. I had a cat whose name was Grump for obvious reasons. And he was the most patient cat in the world, so I would put baby clothes on him, I would swaddle him, and I would feed him his favorite food, and I would pet his head. And he would purr. So, because I wasn't a mean kid, I knew that if he purred, he was okay. And so I realized after a month I've been waiting for this baby to purr. And so these little embedded expectations that you don't really realize where you get them. So it's kind of interesting to look at where these expectations come from. And if you stop and say, well, what was I expecting? Sometimes things come out of your mouth that are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I had a parenting class, and this woman came in and was really furious with her son, teenager, and they asked her what she was expecting. She says, I expect him to get up in the morning, and I expect him to make his bed, and I expect him, and at that point, the rest of the room began to laugh, and so finally she said, oh, maybe not so much at 17, maybe he's not gonna do that. And she had a fancy bedspread and, pillow shams and the little pillows and everything. And she came back a week later and she said, I fixed it. I said, how did you fix it? She said, I got rid of all the fancy stuff. I got a fitted sheet that had some kind of appropriate Avenger kind of motif, a washable comforter, and a pillowcase, just a pillow. And she said, he's making his bed. He just goes over, and I can wash everything. So it's kind of interesting to look at what are you really expecting and what can you change, the little things. The other interesting thing is we get lots of messages about what we're expected to do as men and women, and I remember when I was in the Air Force, they all thought I was there. I was in ROTC, and they said, we're not going to have you do any leadership positions because you're not going to be a leader in the military. This is a number of years ago, so 77. So those expectations are always there in different ways, and you want to look at where they come from. And they can come from people like your childhood teachers. I had a man that came in who was really struggling, and he was overwhelmed, and he kept hearing this voice in his head that said, you're never going to amount to anything. And so we decided to explore this. Well, is it male voice or female? No, it's female. Okay, well that leaves mother, grandmother, aunties, teachers. He went, oh, I think it's my second grade teacher. And so we spent some time kind of looking at that. He kind of mentally walked back into and he remembered he was standing at the board, and he says, oh, I had a really tough math problem, like 1 + 1. And he was standing there with the chalk, and he couldn't bring himself to write anything down. And then he remembered what the teacher said. She came over, she put her arm around him and said, you're never going to amount to anything unless you're willing to